Welcome to the Peopleverse podcast. I'm Evan Troxel. In today's episode, I'm joined by a repeat guest, someone I love talking to, Mike Kunard. Here's a little bit about Mike. After succeeding in the building materials industry for 20 years as manufacturer and distributor, Mike broke out on his own in 2020 to help small yet scalable manufacturers and lend his experience to help them come to market. His company name is Hidden Step Marketing. His specialty is outdoor living products, including decking and railing manufacturers. He's currently focused on supporting two frameless glass railing manufacturers, one from Australia serving residential markets and one from Italy serving commercial and residential markets. Mike, welcome to the Peopleverse.
Thank you, Evan. Good to see you again.
This episode is all about you, Mike, and the idea behind our season, this season at Peopleverse podcast, is really about people. We say at the Peopleverse, we're people first. So I would love to know more about where you're coming from. Where did you find your initial spark for what your work is in the building industry?
Yeah, I mean, my first experience really being a part of the building industry was at the end of one short career in the paint industry where, I learned I wanted to be beyond just a paint company, and I saw this relationship of supply chain and builders and, specialist manufacturers, educators, if you will, being able to connect outside of that supply chain and going to a builder, a siding contractor, and teaching them how to use a new product to them. And that kind of started this, wow, there's a conversion opportunity that happened. And then that went to that kind of realization that there's something more out there to connect as a manufacturer with the entire industry versus kind of your own vertically integrated supply chain. And that got me to a company where I had an awesome regional manager that also brought me to the depths of the kind of the psychology of how to operate within that supply chain, being with a company that was focused on converting, market share from wood-based products to more sustainable-based products with the Trex company. And okay. So I liked seeing, that opportunity, that activity, but really what kind of pulled everything together was a manager, a person, as it would be, right, that really explained the psychology of the relationships and the roles that everyone played and how we can stretch those roles, how we can get someone who is a distributor who is primarily focused on, turning their inventory, buying truckloads, logistics and warehouse services, but how, we can influence them and support them, train them to, create more value for the entire sequence of customers that ultimately would use our product. And it was kind of game over from that. So I'm I like this.
The end or the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, and I had an opportunity then, to transfer that knowledge to another while I was there. So I was only at that company for 3 years, but in that short time, I learned, what to me was really exciting and helped connect with how my brain, operates is, it's not just connecting point A to point B, but it's A, B, C, D, E, F, and connecting all of those dots, and understanding the relationships and the hurdles, the struggles, of each one of those connection points, and then being able to bring on a assistant salesperson. It was kind of a graduation of our intern program that we had for employees, and had an employee there that I could transfer that knowledge to.
It's amazing the thread that is in that whole narrative that you just explained of people, psychology, knowledge transfer, relationships. All of those things are the soft side of the business, right? And
right.
It's really interesting to hear how much that is driving your thinking to connect the dots. Like you said, A to B to C to D to E to F. Like it's all people in there. And I'm also thinking, as you're explaining all that, all of the nuance behind the scenes. As a design professional myself, it's like I go to the counter and I order the paint, right?
Yeah.
And there's all this other stuff going on that we are completely oblivious to because it's such an opaque thing. And I think that's another interesting narrative. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole today, but it is interesting to me all of the things that are going on in the building industry that I just have no clue. Logistics, regionality. I don't know who to talk to where necessarily based on their expertise. So these are all things that we're solving for at Tech.
Correct.
But there's a lot of really interesting, fascinating stuff in that little story that you just shared. There's so many tidbits in there. So I want to get back to the people part. I kind of think of this people compass, and you talked about kind of a mentee that you had that you shared your knowledge with. And you talked about, connecting the dots between the various players in the various markets that you've been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of putting people first in the building industry, as like that's what our focus at Tech is, really getting back to the basics of there's wisdom in the people. What do you think about that idea, the value of people in the building industry?
Oh, it's immense. I think you talked about the soft side, of the
Mm-hmm.
business versus the hard side of the business, and I think there's more emphasis, increasing emphasis, just in my career, on that soft side. It's organizations talking about culture and having initiatives, and I think as our industry has decommoditized, where you're not just using an asphalt shingle and you're not just using a standard 2x6. You may have a engineered 2x6, an LSL, or an insulated 2x6 to hit an energy code. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as we increase the value proposition, the creativity, and the inventions in our industry with technology, I think that it has to become increasingly more of communicating and having that relationship, because it's not just this is what it costs and compared to what this
Mm-hmm.
costs, because
Mm-hmm.
the comparison is not fair. You have to look at, if there's a 2x6,
Yeah.
framing that is, a $1.50 a stick or $1.50 a foot, and we're comparing it to a $3, but that's going to save energy costs, or that's going to, enhance the
Yeah.
long-term, cost structure of that building and reduce it by 70%. We can't just say, transactionally, this costs X and this costs
Mm-hmm.
Y. Have a good day.
Yeah.
There has to be more to it. And there's an example. I had the opportunity to lead about a 10-person team, and one of my reps came to me and said, "Hey, I know we don't do returns on this product, but I have a special circumstance with a customer. And I think that I can, even though he doesn't buy this railing product from us, we carry it, but he buys it from a competitor. I think if we do, if we do this, if we allow this return on something that we don't return, I think I can get the next order for this other product that he currently doesn't buy from us." Very transactional, right? That's a very transactional situation.
It's interesting.
Okay,
It's kind of the opposite. We talk about relationships being, are very different than transactions.
ex, ex,
Transactions
exactly.
but it's funny because you're actually painting a picture of a transaction leading to a relationship.
Well, okay, but so this is what I did. So we had just come off a non-traditional sales meeting, and it was dubbed the meeting in the woods. Okay. I mean, there was a gravel road to get to this destination that I held our sales meeting at. And one big house, and we cooked together, we did the dishes together, and overlooking a lake in beautiful Minnesota. And we had just gone on this retreat, right? Team building and also quarterly planning and the like. And so the representative that asked me permission essentially for this transactional, hard
Hmm.
side of the business, leverage A for
Hmm.
B to get C and the like. I said, listen, I said, you can do the return, but you cannot ask for the order on a product that they choose not to buy from us. What I would rather you do is share an experience that you had from our sales meeting a week ago. Tell them a story. Tell them a story about our meeting in the woods. And this guy, this friend was towards the end of his career, right, to retire. And I said, tell them what that meant to you in your life's experiences of sales meetings, right? You've been
Mm,
a sales rep or manager for 40 years.
right.
What did this do for you? And invite that customer into our culture of
Yeah.
what we're trying to build here, and make it back about the people. So
Wow.
I mean, that's an experience that I've had the opportunity to practice, if you will.
Sure.
In a position in a decision making tree. I'm listening to the voicemail. I'm trying to gauge all of his emotions, my sales rep, at the time, and what he really wants, and how we should prepare um, the territory or that customer for the next representative that's going to come in. Like, what do I want them to experience? What do I want them to leave with? And what do
Yeah.
I want them to experience?
I love that you kind of change the strategy, shall we say, from a transaction to like a storytelling opportunity, and to share some personal benefits that he experienced at your retreat to build relationship, right? Like the
Right.
whole goal there is just to take the next step, building the relationship with a potential future customer. And that to me is severely lacking in the building industry. I think a lot of times product reps are looking for leads, right? And there's just kind of a one track mind when it comes to we're looking for leads. We got to get in the specification. Our goal is to sell, sell, sell because we
Right.
make stuff. And you're talking about that from a completely different perspective, which is exactly the alignment that we are trying to achieve with building product reps slash category experts and design professionals on the tech platform, right? So this goal of true service. And I think that also comes back to even more fundamentals of sharing where we're at right now. That to me becomes that relationship building block, that these long term, shifting the focus from short term gains to long term relationships and the gains that happen based on that over time is the value of that cannot be understated.
I agree, because someone is always going to have a faster product or a cheaper product, or whatever it is, right? If we're selling just on the technical benefits,
Yeah.
um, then someone is going to outdo us, in
Yeah.
one shape or form, or there's if there's not a relationship, then there's just not a foundation for selling solutions or providing solutions.
Yeah.
And
And that
yeah,
comes
that's
through understanding, right? if
right.
you if you have a better understanding of what's needing to be achieved by asking the right questions, understanding the context that they're coming from, that really, if you're able to dive deeper, 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 and also kind of talk about the story side of it, right? Because when you talk about, like you said, the decommoditization of products is happening, but the value can only be seen by, and I think just by speaking the language of story, right?
Yeah.
It's not a checklist. It isn't a checklist of, yep, it does this, it's this much, we can get it in this fast. Because if everybody competes at that level, it just drives further commoditization. But the decommoditization of all that is really based on the story that you tell to for somebody to buy into, right? And it has to be honest, it has to be reliable, it needs to be
Authentic.
authentic,
Hmm.
right? All of those things,
Yeah.
because you can't sell somebody a bill of goods that won't deliver on the performance or whatever it is. I love all of this stuff.
Yeah.
This is
It's
exactly what we're made of here.
yeah, I mean, and and I see it as having worked for manufacturers, large manufacturers for 20 years, and also wholesale distribution with vertically integrated manufacturing. I mean, it's uh, org culture can sell as much product as a low price, and I would
Hmm.
say longer and more, over a lifespan. It's a better strategy.
Hmm.
And it's certainly a better
Yeah.
strategy, I think, today. You said sell, 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 and it's funny. I lost my grandfather in '92, 92, the same year I graduated, or 96, I'm sorry, same year I graduated college. And when I told him that I got an internship at Sherwin-Williams, and he was a forever salesman. He said, sell, 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 sell like, and and I think that generation, it probably was more about selling, products. Maybe there wasn't the differentiation, or certainly there wasn't the choice. You look at the different models of transaction capability that there is today, versus what
Right.
there
It's
was
a
in
different
the
landscape. Yeah.
30s. It's a lot different landscape. But
Well,
yeah,
he probably
it's
knew every one of his customers by name as
oh,
well, right?
exactly.
It is a different, yeah.
Yes, the circle was a lot smaller in southern Minnesota,
Right.
where he
Right.
operated, versus, I'm taking, Instagram direct messages from, from Mexico, or from, states away or
Right.
countries away, that want to buy our products today. So yeah, the landscape is totally different, but that's where today I think org culture, can be as strong of a selling tool as the sharpest price, or the like. So
Yeah. Well, your grandpa may be the answer to this. I don't know. But who does inspire you? And so this doesn't have to be in the building industry. This
yeah.
question, the context of this could be who inspires you, and how and why do they inspire you?
I love to tell the story, of my mom, and I mean what she did. Single, turned single mother in 1980. I was, first grade, had three kids under 10, had a bachelor's degree from a Minnesota State school in education. Found herself a job, got herself a master's from the University of Minnesota, which was an hour and a half each way commute. Then got a
Wow.
PhD. And By the time I was out of high school and halfway through college, she had an opportunity to go be a dean at an international university in Southern California. And she kept, food on the table for us, organized, maintained a household that we, grew up in, and just continued to drive decisions. And then retired the first time at, right at 65. And she had a late start, right, with a lot of things to do,
Wow.
and just, uh, has just did so much, and inspired so many people. There's some awards, that are named after her at the university that she was at, and she retired as a VP of academic affairs of an 11 campus, um,
Wow.
college, and 35 years earlier was a single mom of three kids under, 12 years old.
Wow.
I'll put it all
That is
together. So, and
super inspirational.
and one of
Wow.
the stories that, some of her coworkers gave is that, if there was an employee that was kind of known was going to get let go, the person that was being let go would come out of the office smiling and almost laughing, and her assistants would my mom's assistants would come in and be like, "Did you do it? Did you do it?" Because like he or she is really happy.
That's
Like
not what I would expect to see
exactly.
coming out of the office.
And she had that power. She had that ability, or that talent of finesse to, really help someone see their part in it, and
Yeah.
and say, listen, if you're honest with yourself, are you happy with how things are going? And this isn't it's not good to be in a 40 to 60 hour plus work week and not love what you're doing. And those
Mm,
stories helped shape my decision tree of where am I going on a career path, and what do I
yeah.
want to do next, and what am I believing in, to make sure that I'm loving what I do more than work. Right, as the adage says, that if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. And I'd say I haven't worked very many years, because
Yeah.
I've listened to her advice and guidance, and the like. So that's a big one, and I love sharing her
Mm,
story, because it's just so she's been with me on every single job interview I've ever been on, um, and it's good.
that's awesome. You gave me chills, Mike. That was a
I almost gave myself
seriously.
tears, so let's move on.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, maybe shifting this a little bit.
Yeah.
So inspirational, of course. Heroes. Let's talk about your heroes. You have like guiding North Stars in or outside of the building industry who really continue to inspire you and push you to the next level?
Um, and I don't have a great answer on that. I mean, I'm driven from within, and that goes back to how I was raised. And my dad was a big part of my life as well, being a private practice attorney for small farmers through southern Minnesota, multi-generational, as I've learned even more since his passing. The guys that I went to high school with are like, "Hey, man, your dad, really took care of our family, and he was actually our
Wow.
grandpa and grandma's attorney, helping pass the farm down and the like." So it's been, really, really driven in. I mean, there's some industry people that I like what they're doing and I learn from. Gary Vee has been really somebody that I've just paid attention to. I like what he's doing to kind of upset the apple cart a little bit. And I mean, he's the first
Hmm.
one. Mike Rowe also has been, one from our industry perspective to say is like, force feeding, mandating college is not for everybody. And
Yeah.
really somebody that's got a sizable platform to be able to say that and, make I think people were surprised when 15, 16, 17, 18-year olds are paying attention to Gary Vee. And I think parents were initially saying, like, he swears a lot. Like, I don't know if we want our
Yeah.
kids to say that or to hear that. And, um, was it that or was it the message? And, that says you have to go through down a certain path. And I think that has been good. And Mike Rowe has been a really big advocate too of keeping kids into the trades, to not lose our industries,
Yeah.
and not lose the workings of building our country and building that work ethic, which can be achieved through college too, right? But
Right.
achieving the skill set to keep things working at a different level, at a mechanical level, versus just a technology level.
I've paid attention to both of those people. Those are fantastic examples because I think they continue to beat the drum of this very consistent message,
Yep.
right? Gary Vee is just like you're a media machine. You need to be in today's world
Right.
and show up for your audience and give and then ask.
Yep.
If you ever even ask. It's like
Yeah.
an
I mean,
incredible amount of just be there, serve people, serve people, serve people, serve people. And so that again, this all gets back to the idea of building relationship. That's
correct.
one way to do it in a very big world, right? Where
Yes.
like you said, you're getting DMs over Instagram from people in Mexico about products that you said. It's like, what? Yeah. I mean, that's the life of us, somebody who's in the product business nowadays, or it could be, right? If they
Yes.
choose to widen their lenses that big. And so I think his message really resonates with exactly the kind of thing that you're doing. It's just like serve, 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 serve. And then that relationship over time does have an ROI on it. But it's so hard to put a figure on that. It's like, what is the value of a relationship? Because you can put a value on a transaction, but that
Sure.
is short term, temporary. What's next? The relationship is a completely different model, and it's very hard to put a number on that.
It is, but um, other than it's 100 times more than the
Mm, there you
transactional,
go. Okay, I'm going to
at
use
least.
that figure from now on.
I
That's
mean,
good.
I'm working with someone down in the Florida market who is following the Gary V model. I mean, this guy is
Mm,
on a tear. I mean, he's for the last several years he's been producing 6, 7, 8 pieces of content and putting it on the different platforms and moving to YouTube Shorts when Gary Vee says move to YouTube Shorts. And I'll give a shout out to Keith Dobman, and he's purchasing and working and finding a couple of the glass railing products, both glass railing products that I'm helping these manufacturers come to market with. He's finding value and providing his customers with some of our products. And I know he said at one point in our relationship after we met last November at a trade show that he's met the manufacturers, but he says, you're the one that always answers the phone call. So, my loyalty is to you. Um, I mean, what is that worth to me? I mean, that's if I have
right.
that scattered across the U.S., now I'm starting to think when another company comes along that is saying, man, we are struggling to get to market. Like we know we have a better widget. We know that we are competitively priced. We know that we can support a scalable business, but we can't find the right players to help us get there.
Mm-hmm.
If I have situations like that from building a relationship, um, yeah, what is that worth?
Right.
We might be able together, we might be able to help launch an entire business because of that
Yeah.
relationship. Yes, they bought $100,000 worth of product from us last year, whatever it was, and installed, but to be able to start an entire whole new business because of a relationship that was started,
Yeah.
I mean,
Hard to quantify.
it's hard to
Yeah.
quantify, but it's a heck of a, it's a fun opportunity to be a part of.
Hard to quantify, but more on the invaluable level than the right.
Agree.
It's like,
That's
yeah,
the first
right.
thing that I was thinking of is really it is invaluable.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested who got you interested in getting your hands dirty in this industry. Where did that you talked about starting off in the paint industry. Is that where it began? Was there a specific individual who really like lit a fire in you, or was it outside of that?
No, it was a okay. So I painted a lot as a kid. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and but I'm a junior in college and sorting through my hair's too long, but I got a sport coat on and I'm going to the mock interviews or, for a bunch of different companies that are, set up on campus to go through and find opportunities with. The paint resonated because it actually gave me some confidence. I'm like, I've stained my dad's house, painted my mom's house, painted inside at my aunt and uncle's house.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And hell, I remember the last time I was at the box store in the paint department and corrected the staff that was trying to get my mom and I something to do their house, and I actually, felt like I knew what I was talking about. Said, no, no, we need, we want the flat, not the eggshell finish, or something,
Mm-hmm.
something mundane like that. But it gave me the confidence, and the opportunity there was perfectly timed. I mean, Sherwin-Williams is such an established business. They could bring internship programs and just be laser focused. They could put the blinders on so you only focus on the process, the knowledge that we need for you to be a functional, employee to be able to answer questions or at least go through the right process. If you don't know the answer, how to verify all of that. So it was a great learning point. So I started off really well from them. But earlier in our conversation, I talked about, someone that really started to see the dirt behind, if you will, and the roll up your sleeves part.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my regional manager at the Trex company, Mike Rohr.
Mm.
Mike and he would just go in depth about explaining things that I had experienced but didn't understand. So I didn't understand that Sherwin-Williams was a vertically integrated manufacturer that's sourcing raw material, blending it themselves, selling it to the next stage to the manufacturing side of it, and then also selling it to the distribution side of itself, which is the paint stores group, and all of these intricacies to help understand the actual structures of a business. Then, as we went on to our customers, explained the history of the distribution model and how that has changed over time, or how
Mm.
our product was actually a point of note to change the mentality of commodity to value oriented, and how we can
Mm.
accelerate that. How can we add value to that to make them more comfortable with a shift in their business model? So think about that, right? They're the customer, and they're going through a change as we're trying to hit our goals and aspirations and the like. We're also going to help them, um, you know, be empathetic to what they're going through, and how we can, um, accelerate that to our benefit, but also to their benefit, and having in
Mm-hmm.
mind, and then what happens at the next level, what happens at the lumber
Right.
yard, and understand their decision tree of choice, and how things affect their business. So that that really interested me. Like I love seeing and understanding how businesses work. And in this industry, I got to work for a big publicly traded company. I got to have customers who were, regional or individual, family owned, multi generational, national, regional, private, public. I, I mean, I got to see, and then down to even the contractor. We're working with a national home builder in a subdivision of, Lennar Homes, Minnesota, and knowing that we're a bigger part of a more complex, puzzle. Um, so that's my passion, and he really opened up the knowledge base of understanding so that I could, you know, fully submerge, I guess, for the
Hmm.
rest of my career, into that, and then just continue to enjoy and continue to learn, and share it, pass it on as much as I can.
One of the things that came up in my last podcast episode here on Peopleverse was this idea of, I mean, it sounds like he was a mentor to you, was this idea of mentors pushing you into an area that you are uncomfortable with because of your maybe naivete toward it, inexperience in doing that thing yet. Is there anything like that that happened with you? Like with David on the last episode, it was like get up on that boom that cantilevers 80 foot out off the street. You're at the end of a boom pole and you're caulking windows up on the side of a building, and it was like really pushed him to do that. I mean, and I think that's one thing that mentors do really well is they kind of see the potential in people that they may not see in themselves.
Yeah,
Did that happen with him for you?
yeah, it did. We were working on some competitive advantages, and early, we're talking early stage composite decking, and we had done some certification testing, and we were trying to secure kind of one. I was trying to communicate actually to the local builders association chapter, like, look at all we've done. Right? It was pretty self-promoting, if
Uh-huh.
you will. But there was a kind of an oversight code committee, the 10,000 Lakes group in Minnesota, and they were starting to take a pretty big interest of all the different composite products coming into the market. And the list was big, right? There was 150 different flavors on there, I think, even in the early stage. And um, the testing that we supplied to the local builders association then cross-docked over to this oversight committee, and suddenly they changed their standard of what was allowed to be installed, and it was only if it had the criteria of which we had passed and maybe four, five, six others had. So we effectively wiped out, at least knocked down 140 competitors in an email,
Hmm.
in a moment's time.
Interesting.
Well,
Wow.
that was fine, but then um, my boss made sure that I could present that to the entire organization, how I did it, and the public speaking role, and kind of walking it through as a major accomplishment. That was a visibility that I hadn't experienced. Um, we were on a winning team. We had a great team, and we would be described as a regional team. Making great strides, having great culture, having synergy, and the like. But being, put out in a spotlight like that um, was a stretch. Was
Yeah.
uncomfortable. We'll say that.
A little bit of stage fright there.
Yeah, yeah,
I could see that being somebody pushing
yeah.
you to take that step. It takes a lot to kind of coach someone through what that's like. As an architect, you work your way up to it all through school. You're constantly presenting in front of very small groups.
Hmm.
But then when you become an architect and you're out there doing proposals and competing for work, and then you're ultimately working with stakeholder groups, and you are always on, like you are up in front of a group of people always on, and you have to respond. It's like you don't even, you have stuff that you've prepared that you can rely on, but you never know what somebody's going to ask. And
Right.
so that's when you have to pull from that depth of knowledge that you have in your domain to address those concerns on the spot. And that alone is like freaks people out in a big
Yeah,
way.
I remember the first national type of um, sales opportunity that I worked with. Um, this was at the AZEC company. I had the presentation and the questions ready like 3 weeks before the meeting, and I had sent them to my boss who was flying into the Midwest for this meeting. And I mean, I think eventually he replied within that week and was like, "Yeah, we'll figure it out the night before." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? Like this is my world, man. This is my whole
Yeah.
career on the line here of,
Yeah.
landing a partnership with a major window manufacturer, and you want to deal with it." And I just didn't know. Like
Yeah.
when you know
Right.
what you're doing, when you know your business, and you know what you know and what you don't know,
Yeah.
that always on, that's the mode that he was in, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
was always on, and there wasn't anything that was going to come at him that was going to derail the opportunity. Either he had the answers or he would get the answers, and the like. And that's just something you don't know. At least I didn't know at 30 years old.
Yeah. I think that, well, they say there's two kinds of people, right? There's the people who are uh, like that. You don't need to prepare.
Hmm.
They've been preparing for 20 years, right?
Yes.
They know what they know and they're comfortable walking into any situation. And then there's the other kind of people who are like, I need to have it all figured out ahead of time. I need to know exactly what people are going to ask. I need to know which arm movements to make during which part of the presentation. And things like that. It's kind of a personality type kind of mixed with experience, right? Because it
Yeah.
does change over
Yeah.
time. The more you do it, the better you get at it, no matter what. But
I'm hoping
there's
this is
some
the
people.
second one with you and fourth
You're doing
cast
great.
in total. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll finish up here. That there is a fair amount of distrust and risk avoidance in the building industry between various groups of people, and that's obviously something we want to change because it really limits the amount of knowledge transfer, which you
yeah,
spoke about earlier. It really limits the kind of tapping into the wisdom of the industry. There's a huge push. We've all seen it. We all feel it with technology to really get to the data, the cut
right,
sheets, the checklists that we've been talking about in this episode. But that isn't the whole story, right?
right.
And so we want to break down those barriers and say, look, there's so much wisdom in building product professionals
Hmm.
who know their stuff better than a design professional ever will. Because why? Because design professionals have to be concerned with all of the things. And that product professional knows the ins and outs of their world and
Yep.
potentially, very adjacent worlds that have to do with assemblies and all those kinds of things, testing. And there's a whole other world to the building product side that design professionals need to check some things off, but in order to really build relationships, that's why we're building a Peopleverse, right? That's why
Yeah.
this is so important. Why do you think it's important for our industry to embrace this idea?
I think that because I think again, being on the manufacturer, the product expert side of the business for as long as I've been on, is that you know that's what we want to do. We want to provide those solutions. I think it takes a platform, it takes a reset, it takes an expectation. I think maybe the architectural community is just frustrated, maybe more
Mm-hmm.
so than distrusting of
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm going to get sold. I'm going to get sold. I'm going to get sold. And I don't want to get
There's
sold, and I don't want to
there's
get
an
captured.
expectation
Yeah, eh,
that baggage does exist for sure
right.
because it's happened so many times.
And there's some of that that's put on the put on the from the manufacturer side too, to do so, right? If it's in the
Mm-hmm.
pipeline, why hasn't it moved from
Sure.
stage one to stage two? Is you provided information, we gave a sample, we've invested, like where's the result now?
Right.
So I think that your the strategy of tech to look at categories, to look at geographic areas, to have a strong training process in how to have a reset of behavior. It's important because I believe that at the end of the goals, the charts, the data, the everything else, is that we do just want to share a story. We want to solve a
Mm-hmm.
problem. I think more people have gotten into this industry like I have to, to educate people on how our product can solve a problem or build your business better than without it. And I think that's where, that's where loyalty comes in from, staying to work for a company for, 12 years, and not looking at anything else, laughing at recruiters when they say, hey, we
Mm,
got something right up your alley. But we want to help share that story. And I think that's the driver more than dollars, um, from my peer group that I work with every day, is that we want to be a resource and the like. So, finding a platform and addressing it from multiple angles and giving a voice to the architect and bringing them and doing these informational communication sessions and the like is really important. To You have to show both sides that both sides are willing, right? We're actually mediating is
mm,
what we're doing.
yeah.
And both sides are so important to one another. We don't want the silo to continue.
Yeah. That idea of kind of, we call it neutral facilitation, right? But you do have to show the value of both of those sides before that will you can break down the barriers for that to actually happen.
Agree.
You talked about this idea of loyalty and kind of longevity in a brand or in a category, in a vertical potentially.
Hmm.
And it this is where this idea for us is that wisdom is greater than data. Sometimes data is the gateway, right? You're looking for an architect or a design professional is looking for something.
Yeah.
They need to make sure that it's going to check off these boxes. But then that opens the door for the wisdom that has been enabled through the longevity and the loyalty in that category to be spread to the design professional to
Hmm.
really help them make a decision. Because at the end of the day, that is what design professionals do every single day, is document their decisions so that the building can get built, right? The only
Right.
way that can happen, because it starts off with these really loose ideas, right? And then we
Yeah.
start to get more and more and more concise with all of those, and we document all of those. And so we say wisdom is greater than data, but it doesn't mean that you can have one without the other. You need both, but in the right order, I want to say, is something that's really important to us. This idea, and with the longevity, with the loyalty for people who really have the experience in their category domain or in their that is where that wisdom comes from. I mean, and I think one thing that is really important is to identify who those people are. That's what we're trying to do, is identify those professionals, experts, specialists. Like, there's a lot of different words for that, but it's not
Yeah.
just somebody who just showed up at the company, right? It is somebody who has that deeply embedded experience that they can then share with the design professional to really get the story straight.
Yeah, that I mean, data's I never want to, bash on data by any means, but there's like you say, there's a time, there's a sequence, to do it. And some of the data supports the wisdom and
Hmm.
the service. And,
Absolutely.
we have to have that tying in. It's one thing, I'm running a business today that's scaling for glass railing, and we know that our sample size is still, small relative to the potential opportunity and where we're driving to. So we don't undermine the data, but we know that it's only at its infancy, right? So if you
Hmm.
have,
Hmm.
if you need customization versus standardization, um, you know, for two times out of 1,000 jobs, that means what it means, right? It's a very small percentage where customization is needed, and we can do standardization. But now run those same numbers against 20,000 jobs, right?
Hmm.
We know that it's still not going to be the same percentage. It will increase and the like. So data would just say that you can standardize 99.8% of the times. We know
Right.
because of wisdom and because of our experience that that is not true. Right? It
Mm.
could be 94% of the time. There's some level of factor. We don't know what it is, because we haven't hit the 20,000th job, but we know that it's going to be, and we have to build, whether that's churn, whether that's additional resources. And so, yeah, you can't give one away, and you don't want to, rid the process of of one versus the other, but it's just using them together.
Yeah. Mike, this has been fantastic conversation. I appreciate you. I want to give everybody the opportunity to get in contact with you.
Yeah.
Give everybody the links to where they can find you, and I will, of course, include those in the show notes for this episode so that they can click on them. But I want you to tell everybody what they are.
Absolutely. So I've got 2 Instagram accounts to manage. That's at Hidden Step Marketing, and then I've got at IG Railing, which is our residential frameless glass rail. You can find me on LinkedIn, just at Mike Kunard, and also at IG Railing. And those are the 2 primary platforms. I've got some Twitters and some Facebooks rolling around, but we can start at those. And say Mike at hiddenstepmarketing.com is a great email to get me at too.
Well, Mike, thanks for participating in the Peopleverse. I hope people do join us here in the Peopleverse and follow you. You're an excellent person, and you know everything there is to know about. What I really love is like the integrated LED lit glass railing. It looks incredible. I just think about the practical application of that. As I have a deck off the back of my house.
Okay.
And if I had a glass railing there, right, at night, I wouldn't be able to see that glass railing, and I'd bump into it and maybe fall over it. But the integrated lighting is, I mean, not only does it set an amazing mood for the space, the outdoor space that you're in, but also it has practical safety implications as well. I think it's a fantastic product.
The glass in itself, we're seeing a renaissance in the glass rail category shift. You'll see I hashtag it about every time. That's safety, functionality, and architectural design. So
cool. Once again, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Evan.
And that is a wrap for this episode. Peopleverse is powered by Tect and produced by Tect Media. For more episodes and access to the show notes, visit peopleverse.fm. To learn more about Tect, visit tect.com, where you can experience the shortest path from keyword search to local building product expertise. Please rate us 5 stars and leave us a review wherever you listen. And lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Talk to you soon.